Hello, this is Paul Elliott, member of the DC HiFi Group. Since we have not been meeting in person for the past year, I thought it would be good to visit some of our members to let us know what's going on with their systems. I'm starting off with Dave Raden's setup. In early May, I went out to Dave's for a visit, and the azaleas and rhododendrons were in full bloom. Dave has a wonderful home in a fantastic setting with over 1,000 azaleas and rhododendrons on the property. It certainly was a treat to see this. It's absolutely spectacular. Dave has been a founding member since the first year of the group and has hosted a few meetings at his home in Annandale. Each time we met at his home, we experienced how his system was evolving. Dave is an avid DIYer and builds most of his own equipment. I apologize for the intermittent noise on the audio. There was some interference with the wireless mic, and I didn't show up when we tested. So here is Dave explaining his latest, and take it away, Dave.
Hey everyone, I'm not really prepared for this, so hopefully it'll come off okay. As far as the speakers go, I started with NHT M6s, which quite a few of you in the group have heard, both DIY and the DC HiFi Group. Started with those and then started modifying those, basically upgrading the components of the crossover, then bypassing the aluminum dome tweeter in those and using a ribbon that I mounted on the side, kind of a temporary prototype sort of way, which lasted for a year or two. And then I went to these drivers in the product of complete ignorance, tried them open baffle. They're not suitable in any way for open baffle. And this ribbon tweeter, which is an Orem Canis G1, which I've been using for ever since I started modifying and adding ribbons. This is the one I've been using. I eventually put these in a box, sealed box, no good. They really need a vented box. And I originally had them in, Paul will show you a picture as I'm talking about this of the way they were arranged, but the mid-ranges were side or just stacked here next to the tweeter. And the idea was to get them as close as possible so they'd be acting like a point source. They sounded pretty good. They had some imaging problems, which better than I have picked up on. And I knew that the MTM, the Diapolito design, which is what we're seeing here, was probably going to take care of that. And it seems to. The few people that have been here in the pandemic, of course, not a lot of people have been in the house in the last year. Everybody seems to think that this was the step in the right direction. Paul said that things have changed every time they come over the years, and in actuality, most things have not changed. I'm still all digital, running out of a plain old, and I mean old PC. All the files are stored somewhere else in the house, and it comes over the network to the PC, which for quite a while fed a R2R DAC, the Holo Audio string DAC, into a little preamp crossover that I made to separate the bass from the mids and highs. And then the mids and highs went to the M6s, the NHTs, or the previous version of this, or even now this, because I have built a passive crossover for this. Sorry about that. Really, none of that has changed. The amplification is stuff I built in the 1980s, 90s, a long time ago. They're solid state. People that have heard them seem to think they're right up there. I think they're right up there. The one change I've made in amplification recently is subwoofer. I'm using a Crown XLS 1000. It's just a Class D amp, which I think does incredibly well for bass. And I've tried it on full range, and it actually sounds pretty good for that too. But for this system, it's relegated to subwoofers. The other change that's happened along the way, although it's been in the system now for several years, is DEQX, which I'm using right now as an active crossover. So it's 3 amplifiers, one for the sub, one for the mids, and one for the tweeter. Kind of interesting having a 200 watt per channel amp driving a 102 or 7 dB tweeter. Seems to do okay. The cables are all made by me. In fact, you can buy them. I put a listing on the DC HiFi Group that they're for sale. They're pure solid. It's just one strand. There's not multi-strand. There's one strand per conductor. And then the speaker cable is thermostat wire. It's each terminal on the speaker gets 18-gauge wires, and each of the 18-gauge wires is solid and insulated from the rest. So it's a poor man's Litz cable. Everything seems to work okay. I don't think I'm having any issues. Well, I don't think I'm having any issues with anything, but you get used to what you hear, and that's why I want other people to come over and tell me what they hear. What's wrong, what's right, what can I do better, things like that. Just solid copper. And copper wire is among the purest there is. When people start talking about 5, 6, 9s, forget about it. There's no such thing as 6 9s copper or silver. Doesn't exist. I've also, a change that happened quite a while ago now is no more binding posts on anything that I build. If I can make it a speak-on connector for speakers, that's what I do. It's just so simple. You can change things with the amp on. You're not going to short anything. You can disconnect and reconnect very quickly. I can take these speakers off, put another pair of speakers on. In less than a minute, it'll all be hooked up and working. Other than that, what you can't see are there's 2 microphones. One goes to the decks. It can do measurements and it can do time alignments and EQ. I don't do any EQ. There's no EQ in the system at all. And another is a USB mic that goes to the PC. I use a program, same one Paul uses. Is it Real RTA? True RTA?
True RTA.
True RTA, which is actually a very capable program for a fairly small amount of money. Yeah, it steps up to 24.
24 dB per octave.
Which if you 24 steps per octave, which
24 steps.
if you think about it, there's only 12 notes in an octave, so you're looking at half notes. It's that fine a scale. So it can tell you things you really probably don't want to know. If you see a spike and it's like one segment wide, it's half a note. Are you really going to hear it? Hard to say. Of course, I try and get rid of all that. I've moved speakers around huge areas of the room, trying to get the smoothest response I can, starting with the woofers and then looking at what happens up here too. This seems to be the best spot for this subwoofer cabinet, as you can't see. It's firing out the side. The other ones I had were firing out the front, so it was a slightly different position. But so many things matter. For years I did nothing with room treatments. In fact, this space, while we were having our addition built, this was completely filled with my business, shelves and a table for packing up stuff and taking pictures. And the last few years, and nobody here has seen it like that, but it's been within a year, the back wall has been a bunch of metal cabinets still with inventory from my business on it. That's all gone now, so I finally got a chance to really try some things. And one of the things I tried, is a little off topic, is DEBRA, D-E-B-R-A, all caps. It's an acronym for Distributed Equalized Bass Reflex Array, I think. But what they suggest is you take 4 cabinets of subwoofers and you find just the right places in the room to put them, and one's out of phase, and magically your bass gets nice and even and flat. And I wanted to play with that for quite a while, and when I finally got the walls clear enough to attempt it, I went back and I read the DEBRA instructions on how to find the right place, and to me it seemed like it was very subjective. So I did some research, and there are a number of theories on the best way to go, and the one I went with said 4 subwoofers is all you need. You can have more, but you don't really gain much. As long as they're not all in one place, you're good. Well, it turns out there is some variation on where you put them, but within a half hour, I had flat bass from below 20 hertz up to my crossover point 80. I mean, it was flat. The whole concept's been out for quite a while. I highly recommend. They don't have to be all the same, and I'm actually not doing that now because I want to hear this system as it is. But it can make an incredible difference. And when your bass is flat, you're not trying to match everything else up to a peak or a valley. You know, if everything was flat, you could get all the levels and all your drivers matched perfectly. But nothing's ever flat, nothing's ever level. So I find it difficult to say, well, what is the median that you're trying to adjust to? And I seem to have gone way off track. Yeah, I have the one for I have the one for this one right here. My tweeter attenuation is by resistor on clip leads, but this is a crossover for this box. So that's the tweeter, that's the mid-range, and this is from the amp. A few clicks, you're going. And it sounds pretty good without any adjustments, just right off the textbook with what the values should be, and everything is matched as closely as I can match them with the equipment I have. So seems to be good. At the moment, I still think it sounds better with the electronic, but like I said, I haven't tweaked that at all. So who knows where I can end up. I plan to end up with a fully passive speaker system, so the stereo amp will drive the whole shebang. But I want to be able to switch back and forth depending on what's going on. But while we're still here, if you are fully vaccinated and you want to come give me your honest opinion of what everything sounds like, I'd love to have you over. One at a time, maybe two if everybody's fully vaccinated. But just let me know. Love to see you.